Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2022 Grand Design Reflection fifth wheel, we're going to be showing you how to install the Solera Slide Out Awning. But before we get into that, let's take a minute, check this out, and make sure it's going to be the right setup for you. The whole purpose of these slide out awnings is really simple. More or less, whenever you have your slide outs opened up, they're vulnerable to getting moisture and debris and stuff inside, right? Because it'll sit on top without an awning here. It'll sit on top of the slide out. You know, water can leak in, but what tends to happen is when you open and close it, it'll bring that debris in with it, eventually kind of tear your seals up, so on and so forth. And even with just water sitting up here, you know, what tends to happen is mildew and mold can build up over time and things like that, and just kind of start to tear everything up, really, when it comes down to it. And so by having an awning over this, it's going to keep it protected from the elements, you know, even the sun hitting it and everything. Keep it clean and dry. These awnings are available in a couple of different colors, so we're showing off the black here today, but there's a white one that you can get as well. So if that matches your rig better, you know, you can always look into that. But this particular awning is going to be 85 inches wide, which seems to be a pretty common size, but that's probably one of the biggest questions a lot of people wonder or ask about is, how do I know what size to get? You know, where do I measure from to figure that out? So we'll get down on the ground and go over that now. How you would measure to figure out what size awning that you're going to need is pretty simple. Open up your slide out completely, and you're just going to measure from the two outer edges. So you'd go from here to here. And this particular one that we have is going to work with the measurements between 80 up to 85 inches. So pretty straightforward. You know, if yours measures bigger than that, you'd want to look into the next size group of awnings. If it's smaller, you'd want to go down, right? And then it's designed to work with the slide outs that come out 48 inches. So from there to here, that's pretty standard nowadays, but still worth checking and verifying that that's how your camper is set up. And then there's something else that you need to look for. You're going to want a minimum of 7 inches of clearance on each side of this. It's a little difficult to explain that, but on the other side of our camper, we have another bump out and a pretty good example of what to look for and make sure you have that proper clearance. Here's what I was talking about. So this is a bump out, right? And if you're wanting to put a slide topper on this arm here for the other awning that goes over the front of her, or the front side of her camper, that's definitely not 7 inches of clearance, right? So what would happen is the brackets and everything, when you'd mount them up, would interfere with that. So if you come to realize you don't have that 7 inches of clearance because of a setup similar to this, then you would need to go down to that next group of sizes of awnings. That way you'd have the proper clearance. Now with that said, by doing that, the slide out fabric or awning, you know, would come in a little bit, but it would still cover the whole slide out, and you'd be in good shape still. So just something to check before you end up getting an awning that you can't use. Other than that, not really a whole lot to these. You know, taking those measurements are probably going to be the most important thing that you can do to make sure that you get the right slide topper awning for your particular camper. You know, they're a great way to help keep your investment protected, and I think they look good too, so can't really ask for too much more. As far as the installation goes, it's really not too bad. It can be a little annoying at times just trying to line everything up. Definitely need a friend to give you a hand at some points, and a couple good ladders really go a long way when doing something like this. I definitely recommend picking up what's called butyl tape, which will go on the mating surfaces and kind of smash down and create a gasket to make a watertight seal. So highly recommend using that like we did, but if you're going to be doing this yourself, feel free to stick around. We'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, the first part that we're going to be working with is this here. This is called the access plate, and this will be the side that faces out away from our camper, and this flat side is going to be the side that goes up against it. This part that kind of comes up and overhangs, this flat part here, that's going to face up towards the top of our camper. So we're going to do a little prep. What you need to do is take some of this butyl tape, which you will have to get separately. And we're just going to apply it to the back of our plate. And this is just going to help keep everything sealed up and prevent water from getting behind it. Cut that off. And then what I like to do when we go to grab the next piece is, if we butt it right up against it, that could potentially leave an opening for moisture to get in. So I like to just overlap them just a little bit to ensure everything will stay sealed. And if you happen to have a little opening showing, just come back and cover that up too. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. Once the butyl tape's on here, we can actually get it secured to our camper. And the hardware that we're going to be using, we have 5 of these self-tapping screws. We want to make sure to get the ones that have the square bit head and the ones that are tapered, just like these here. On the camper, where you're going to be installing these is the corners right here in this area where these trim pieces meet. So these, make sure you got that piece facing up like we talked about. That's going to get pushed up tight against the bottom of this top trim piece. And we're going to go as far over as we can to the side. This is kind of nice about the butyl tape too. It'll hold it in place. Forgot to mention too, before you stick this on, if you want to wipe this surface down, it's probably not a bad idea. Then we can grab our hardware and get them started. What I like to do is just work from one side, do this, kind of work my way in, and don't completely tighten them, just snug them down. Once they're all in, then we can come back and ensure that they're completely tight. Got these all tightened down and installed. That's how it looks. And a lot of times what'll happen when you do draw it down, that some of that butyl tape will come kind of squishing out of the side. I like to just take a razor and score it. Just remove that little bit of extra to help clean up our install look. Now you want to lay your cover out here, and we can take this here arm, and on one end of it, there's going to be a hole, and that's going to line up with this end piece and that hole there. Slide that in. Then there's this self-tapping screw. It's a Phillips head. Go ahead and run that down. And then do that same exact process on the other end of our slide topper. If you look at the extrusion rail that's on your camper, this is where our fabric is going to slide into this channel. And to make that easier, on one end of it, I'm just going to take a pair of pliers and open it up a little bit. That way it won't get hung up as easy and things like that. And then if you want, you can take a rag or something and just wipe the rail out completely, make sure it's free of any debris, things like that. That way everything will slide into place with much less effort. You can grab these brackets now, and you'll notice there's several grooves in them, and these are going to slide into those parts that we bolted up to our camper. And we're going to be using these 2 grooves. All right, And so what you can do, you're going to sit this way. We're going to slide this onto our arm. And we'll kind of just prep everything here. So they're going to give you these little set screws. Total of 4 of them, 2 for each side. And we're going to put those in the bottom holes here. Just hand tight. We don't actually want to tighten them down just yet, but a little bit easier to keep these in place, and that way they're at least ready for us when we do need to tighten them. So I'll do the same exact thing on the other side. We're ready to get this in place now, and the way it's going to work is this piece is going to slide through that channel that we opened up a minute ago, down all the way, and we'll have to kind of line up our brackets like we talked about, those channels in it, with the plates that we bolted to the camper. So kind of have to just do this on the fly, you know, and you're going to want to make sure that the fabric is going to be coming up from the top of our tube or the cylinder here, coming up over the top of it. So that's how it'll unroll, just like that. We'll just get everything lined up here. Try to make sure it's straight. Work it all the way down. With the fabric in the channel, you take these plates, line up the grooves, and slide them into position. Once you have everything centered up, you know, making sure that the actual awning fabric overhangs evenly on each side of your bump out, we can tighten these set screws down. So I just have a 1/8 inch Allen key. We'll run these down. There's going to be 2 holes in the bracket up top here, and you know, as long as you're sure if you're centered up and everything, you can take the included self-tapping screws and secure those down. Take it easy with these. Make sure you get them started good and everything. Just kind of feather them in because it sounds like these have a tendency to break if you over tighten them. So don't get too carried away. We're going to have these silver pins on the end of our roller, and you want to pull both of them out. So I did the one side already, and when you go to do this, especially on the second one, you can kind of take the roller and rotate it a little bit. It'll take some of that tension off of it, and then these pull straight out, and you just don't want to let this thing go. You definitely want to help, because it's spring loaded, and slowly let it roll itself up here. So at this point, you can take your slide out or your bump out and bring it out and in, and make sure you're happy with how the slide topper is going to come out with it. You know, if you happen to see creases, all right, that are in it whenever you're rolling it in, and you want to get rid of those creases, what you can do is bring it out. Okay, so bring everything out until those creases disappear. And let's say if the creases are going like this, what you would do is roll this in a little bit by hand to release the tension, and then take the top where it goes into the extrusion rail and pull it or push it that way, right? Because if you got a crease like this, you'd end up straightening it out, and do that again until you're happy with everything. That's how you make those adjustments. And once you are, then we can take a screw and secure each end down. You're gonna have 2 small self-tapper screws, and you can run them in through the extrusion rail, through the awning, and usually about 1.5 inches or so in from each end will be sufficient. And finally, now that we have everything in place and we're happy with how the slide out rolls out, we can take these little covers that they give you, and these are just going to go in these channels to cover up those screw holes and clean up the installation look. So I went ahead and brought our slide out completely out, and we're happy with the finished product, so we're in good shape. But with that said, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Solera Slide Out Awning on our 2022 Grand Design Reflection fifth wheel.